I'm going to make a video on box and whisker plots, and if you haven't watched the first video, you should, because it shows how to do it by hand, and it kind of gives an explanation as to what the data means. But I want to give an example. Let's say I had a test, and so what I want to do is I want to enter all my scores into my graphing calculator. So I'm going to go to Stat, I'm going to go to Edit, and I've already done that. And let's say my scores for my first test. I had a 58, a 62, 67, 69, 68, 71, 75, and you can see that the 10th score was a 58, the 11th score was a 40. Clearly, my students hadn't studied very hard for this, and what I'm hoping you'll see is uh, when I get to L121, that means in the first list, the 21st score is blank, which means I actually had 20 students, and my last student had a 58. So I'm going to now graph this on as a box and whisker. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press second and y equals. And I need to turn my stat plot on. So I'm going to turn it on. And now I'm going to go down, and I'm going to select. You can select this box and whisker, or you can select this one. There is a difference. Now I'll show you the difference. We'll select this one for starters. And when it does that, it says L1 frequency 1, that's fine. And then I'm going to go to graph. And now you're going to see nothing's here. Well, the reason why is because my window's not set right. So my X-min, I'm going to just say from 0 to 100. I'll say from 0 to 101. Maybe I'll just go 1 to 101. I know nobody got 100, and I know that nobody got a 1, so I'm just going to put that there. And I'm going to say from 0 to 10 for my Y values. And now when I graph, I get this graph. And the reason why this was useful is because this box and this box here represent the outliers. And once again, if you haven't watched my first video, I highly recommend you do. If I go to trace, you can see my absolute minimum value was at 36, which was an outlier.
Then look your character. It's like a video game. I like playing that video game.
Okay. And so this represents my first quartile, which means 25% of my class scored below a 57. This is my medium, which means 25% scored between a 57 and 63.5. This represents 69, which is my third quarter, which means 75% of my population scored under a 69, which is obviously no good. This is a 75, and then I had that one student who did really well, which was a 96. But this is my fourth quartile. This should be 100%, but like I said, there was an outlier here as well. So I'm going to show you one more thing very quickly. I'm going to say, all right, well, let's say I had a retest. And I then gave a retest, and I marked all the scores in here. And you can see I still have 20 students, and the scores don't really matter so much, just so much as you know that that's what's going on. So, oops, I have to press second y equals again. And I'm going to go down to here. I have to turn this on. So you'll notice I haven't turned the other one off. And I'm going to go over and turn on this. If I use this, well, I'll show you in a second. Here I'm using L2. So now when I graph, you'll notice you can see the difference right away. The big difference is 79% to 84.5% represents 25% of my scores, with this one outlier exception. And then my median was 88, which means half my students scored an 88 and above, whereas the other half scored below an 88. Here, my median was 63.5, which means only half my students scored above 63.5. So you can see their score is much improved. And the maximum was 100, which was not an outlier. The third quartile was 94%, which means that 75% of my students scored below that, but it also means that 25% scored above it. If I go, I'm just going to do one last thing. If I go back to here, and I select this one, and then press enter, enter, and I graph it, you can see the bar goes all the way out. And so if I do that for my second one, my second box and whisker, it doesn't identify the outliers, and that shows that 25% of my scores. Press trace down here. It looks like 25% of my scores are in this range, which is true, but it's because I had that one outlier, which makes this look so ridiculous. And that's it. So I hope this video helps you understand box and whisker, and also the significance of box and whisker, and why identifying outliers makes such a huge difference. Like I said, if you look at the data with the outliers, you get a pretty good idea as to what's actually happening.
Like, can you do the mountain one?
I'm sorry, Benji, what?
Can you do the one with the mountain thing? That one.
Oh, the mountain? Well, I'm trying to make a video that will help my students understand this a little bit better, so we're going to hold off on the mountain. But like I said, here you can see that really it's here and not all the way that big range. And that's why the outliers makes a huge difference on your data. Anyway, like I said, if you haven't watched the first video, I highly recommend it. It's somewhat entertaining and it's really useful. All right, thanks. Bye-bye.